Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Women Are Worthy show. I am so excited about tonight's show. The Women Are Worthy presents a panel of intelligent women as we start the first series. This will be our first series of Meeting of the Minds concerning the times. So joining us tonight is Adina Torres. Hi, Adina. Sabrina Kirkland, Nadine Ali, Zena Sharpston, Tara Rosenberg.
Hi.
Okay, so I want the village to come through and post your comments. So forgive me if my voice is a little hoarse because playing around with these women, this is what you get. So I want to explain before I go any further. I want to start with the oldest to the newest. So, and what I mean by that is, I've known Miss Rosenberg since I think I was maybe in the lower grade, and I've known her the longest. After that comes Zena. I've known Zena, I think, is it fourth or fifth grade, Zena?
Elementary school, fourth grade.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Yes.
Yep. Yes, y'all. I got friends. Look, I got friends, okay? I got friends. So I've
She
known
knows
her that
people.
long. Yeah, I know people. And after that would be Adina Torres. When I was younger, I just thought, and she still is like her T and Zena, like oh my God, all three of them. I thought they were so gorgeous. I was just in awe of them when I first met all three of them. Now the
Thank
next
you.
person after that, fourth person would be Sabrina Kirkland. When people talk about that you can't make friends with people on social media, lies you tell. Because
Mm,
I've become friends with Sabrina Kirkland. Sabrina, thank you for allowing me in your village, and we just have a wonderful rapport. So thank you for being the intelligent woman you are.
thank you, and
You're
you as well.
welcome. Thank you. And then the creme de la creme, the connector, the senator's looking wife, the woman who knows everyone. We're not talking about
Everybody.
everybody.
Yes.
We're talking about
Don't
from
believe that.
senators. This woman is just a joy to know. We want to welcome Miss Nadine Ali. Hello, Nadine.
Hey, thank you all. Thank you, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Now, before we begin the program, I think it is fitting for us to have a moment of silence for U.S. Representative John Lewis and Minister C.T. Vivian. Let's give them a
Yes.
moment of silence. Okay. Well, we want to start our conversation because, as you can see, we have a diverse group of women. So, we want to start up the conversation regarding the state of Black and Latin women in America. So we're gonna have these conversations. It's gonna get real. It may get a little high pitched at one point, but at the end of the day, we're giving our opinions and how we feel. So I had a conversation, ladies, with a young lady, and she said, Jackie, I'm a white woman in America. I think I know what racism is, but I'm not sure. What is racism? So, what does it look like to you? What is your perception of racism? So, I'd like to start off first with Zena. How would you address that question?
Ooh, racism is a lot of different things. Racism could be not being able to go to a store comfortably and not be followed around. Racism can be in employment. Racism can be in education, the inability for people of color, whether you're Latin, whether you're Black, whether whatever, to be able to receive the same education as your peers. Racism is so many different things. Racism is passing someone in the street and they feel the need to grab their bag because they feel that you're a threat. So it's a lot of different things.
Mm.
Sabrina?
For me, I want to piggyback off of Miss Zena. She's absolutely correct. But one thing I do want us to also think about is you can be racist in your own race. You can be racist against your own people, your own color people, no
Absolutely.
matter what color you are. So, like you said, it could be many different things in many different ways to many different people. It can also speak to your class. There's high class, low class, middle class, and no class. And we are
Right.
all racist against each class. So again, it is very diverse and it means a lot of things to a lot of people.
Nadine, what does racism look like to you?
Wow. A person not accepting me for who I am, um, just looking as if they wear it. Racism is just wanting to kill somebody right away and you don't even know anything about them. Racism is because I grew up in the South. Um, you go into the store and you can tell based on the way the person is talking to you that they really don't even really want to be talking, to you. So it's a lot of other things, but I'll just leave it at that.
Miss Rosenberg.
To me, everybody is on the same page, and I agree with them. But I want to just take it another notch to. I feel that racism is just to discriminate against a person because of who they are, what they look like, what they stand for. A group of people that are shunned, and because you are part of it, someone could be racist towards me because of that, But it's deeper than skin, it goes on different levels and layers on how it
Right.
can be a racist. It could be someone being racist towards you on those levels.
For me, racism is when you walk into a store or you're walking next to a Caucasian person or someone who's not of your race and they hold their purse because they perceive that you're going to do something, or that you're walking down the street and they want to cross the street if it's late at night or something like that. Someone who won't give me a shot just because of my color, or they subliminal things, and that it's racism. Just like someone said, you can they hold things against you. They don't educationally and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I perceive racism is. I think we should all give each other a chance, get to know the person before we judge them because of their skin color.
I remember a long time ago when I was younger, my mom had moved us to a new neighborhood. And I remember moving into this new place and being really, really excited because it was something new and something different. And that particular day when my mom, after moving boxes and getting us situated, she decided that she wanted to go to a local store in the neighborhood to get us something to eat, because by then she was too tired for us to, she was too tired to cook something. So she went out to the store. When she arrived at the store and on her way back home, she said that she saw a bunch of white kids, a bunch of young white gentlemen, and they started to scream, "Lynch her, lynch her." Okay, this was 1977. And I remember my mom sitting there saying to herself, I can't believe that this is happening. But she knew that if they had approached her, there was something that she needed to do to defend herself. And when I think back of that's racism in its extreme, because it's a woman trying to go to the store to feed her children, but yet and still, as a female even, she posed as a threat to 3 white boys. And I sat there and I said to myself, wow, right? Because a lot of times what happens is that even in the case of housing and things like that, people of color are not necessarily as readily accepted and welcomed in certain environments like other people are. And that's a problem, because at the end of the day, we're all people, regardless of skin color, regardless of creed, regardless of sexuality. We're all people and we should be accepted the same.
Zena, I know Zena has a great story about that, and I want to piggyback on what Zena's saying, and I'm going to see if we can get Adina in. My father lived in a certain part of Brooklyn before he actually moved into a predominantly white neighborhood in Brooklyn. And I remember hearing stories that when he moved into the area on Nostrand Avenue, Zena, he was, they turned him away because he was a black man. He was a black single man, and he had a good job. They didn't want him to move in. So what happened was he told them that he's not married and he has children, and particularly a young young child under 5. And so what he had to do, and it was a young girl, it was a daughter, it was me. So he had to be interviewed into a group of people, I'm not going to say whom, a group of people. And then when they saw that he had a job, he was a single dad, he had to go through a lot before they actually allowed him to move in the area where we moved in. And a lot of people don't talk about it or know about the situation. You know, the older folks do, but people just take it for granted where they're living. Like, you can live anywhere you want to live right now, you know, but people don't understand what people had to go through, because he had to sit in front of a committee, not just in front of the Left Rack organization. He had to sit in front of a Jewish community. I'll put that out there, okay? To see if he was fit to come into that neighborhood and so it won't be like roughing. Like, if he comes in, who else is gonna come in? So when I hear the story, it's amazing to me. So I understand exactly what you're saying, Zena, about your mom and, you know, what she had to endure.
First name is a Muslim name, and my last name is a Jewish name. When I was about, I want to say 18, and I was looking for work. I had, back then when they give you the interview over the phone or whatever, and then they tell you to come in. And we had a good conversation. They was excited to meet me. I get to the place and I tell them my name. They look like they was thrown off because I'm coming in as a black woman. And then they told me to wait a second, and then they came back and said that the job was already taken. So I was just on the phone with them the day before, so that was a racist decision. I feel that they made that, because of I was black, but they saw my name Rosenberg, they thought that I was one of them, and then when they see me, I'm not. So to me that was a big that was the first time I got to be exposed to racism on that level,
Right, right. Do you have anything, Nadine?
Just sitting listening to the things that they've mentioned. I was wondering, Zena, was that a southern state that you were at or in a northern state?
No, it's in the northern state, in Brooklyn, actually, in Brooklyn, New York.
And that in itself lets you know, like what I've always heard. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, so that's definitely southern. And I know you all know that we had to weather through, and thank God during the time when I was growing up, I didn't see a lot of that. But of course, knowing the history and going through the history, we were just blessed to have come out of that in the 60s. But I've always heard those stories up in the northern states. You got it made, but really you don't. It's more or less 2 times worse. In the South, they're going to show you whether they like you or not. Okay. And just going back to the first question you asked us, I remember it's like we don't hold, you know, uh, racism within us when we meet a person as Black people, because we just live and don't even worry about it. But it's when they start doing certain things, you start looking like, okay, I get your point, but you really don't want us to go out there and be all in. But just listening to their stories, I just remember some things that went on when I was growing up. I haven't really seen a lot from Atlanta. Martin Luther King, John Lewis, may God, be with him. C.T. Vivian, who just passed as well, were people who really showed us to fight for our rights and showed us what to do. And by me going to high school, first Black high school, Frederick Douglass High School, that was taught all the history and everything, and it made you feel good because and to know how to stand up for yourself versus not holding your head down when somebody speak to you and stuff like that. So
Well, I want to piggyback. Let me first read some comments. We have a comment by Tamara Gale. She said, "Good evening, ladies." We have Miss Sabio. She said, "Hey, Zena." We also have a comment from a gentleman. Edward Carter said, that's interesting point. Racism in your own race. That goes to T when you made that comment. Fatima Rose said, all facts. We also have a comment from Ms. Sabio. She said, racism and prejudice or bias are different. I believe racism has to do with power and how that power affects others. So POC can be biased, can be prejudiced, but not racist, because POC don't have the power to exercise their bias, prejudice, and impact the lives of others. Now,
Mhm.
Edward says it's great to hear racism from a woman's perspective. I also hear prejudice and discrimination being identified within all your views. Adina, are you able to speak? Okay, she's okay. You can try your phone. Now, what I want to say, Miss Ali, is I disagree with a point you made because I lived up north and I live in the south. One thing up north is if they don't like you, we gonna tell you we don't like you. In the South, it's totally different.
You're right.
Now it's a little bit more in your face. It's one of those you poor darling, you sugar pie, and with a knife in your back. Up north, we just come right at you and let you know.
You know
And I think
what?
it's a little bit different because I've lived here for a long time, and it took me a while, Miss Nadine, to get acclimated. Because I'm like up north, I know who my enemies are. In the South, I don't know who they are.
And
So
like I said, growing up in the South, I seen and know that that's why I stated that. I've only heard about how it was in the North, but I know they do the same thing down South, like you said. They show it by actions. Look
mhm.
at all the killings that they've done and continue to do, and that's why I was making that statement because I've seen it. So and they come direct if they don't like you. Hey, but and you may have run across some that, like you say, hey, sugar pie, but that could be your own cousin.
I
Okay,
know, but I'm
that,
just waiting
that
for
do
you.
you like that. So, and it was the great point of bringing out, hey, within your own race. Okay, can we all get it together
Can I
in
say
our
something?
own race? Okay.
Sure, who wants to say something?
Me,
Someone.
I wanted to say something,
All right.
but I think you could look at racism in a whole different view. When I was watching Minister Farrakhan on the June 4th speech, he broke down the
July.
word, July 4th, he broke down the word racist. So if you have love for your particular group and you are you share that love in a loving way without having to make any other group feel shame or less than. To me, it's good points and it's bad points as far as the word racist, because just because you say that you're racist doesn't mean it's a bad thing. If you have love for your people, your community, you want to make sure that your people are being taken care of like other groups are. How could we turn those into a bad thing? It becomes a bad thing when you put down another group because they lack of what you have. But if you love your people, then yes, you can be a racist, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a bad thing. It depends on uh how you present it. You get what I'm saying? Because I could say when you saying Black Power Ungawa all day, some people would say that's racist. Is
Well,
that racist to say that you love your
Like
people?
do you think
what?
that's prejudice instead of racism? What do you think, Sabrina?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mute
That
your-
sounds like prejudice as opposed to racist. I
Mm.
remember when I am originally from Florida, and I came up here when I was a young girl, probably about 12, 13, and I lived in Augusta. And that was my first and only time coming face to face with racism. We were sitting in a classroom, and it was only maybe I think two African Americans, myself and another male, in a predominantly all white classroom. And I remember it was like yesterday. This one of the white boys in this class put his boot up on my desk, and it still had red clay in it. Okay,
Mm.
because in Augusta's all this clay, it still had red clay. So I remember the clay particles peppering my desk. he slammed it on my desk and he said the N-word, shine my shoes.
Wow.
The only thing I remember the class said, this is what the classroom said, because there was
I know it's
All
red.
red.
a red haze just came over me. I go into blind rages, right? The class said
Except Brian
that
Ray.
I literally grabbed his ankle and flung him across the classroom. I can't confirm or deny this.
Mm.
All I know is when I came to, he was on the other side of the classroom, cluttered with desks, other desks. I can't confirm this, people. I just know
It wasn't me, right?
the class said he flew.
I like how you said I can't confirm or deny.
I don't.
It wasn't her.
He flew over my head and landed on the other side of the classroom.
That was the blurry rage.
Cluttered with- I mean, literally, the desk was covering him, and he was moaning.
Wow.
Of course, I was suspended. Still, I didn't understand because it was like, oh, you should have reported it. But when you're in a predominant, because at that moment, because I never experienced anything like that. Hey, I'm knuckle up from the pride. I'm just gonna keep it real, okay? I'm from Liberty City. That's all I'm gonna say.
Ooh.
And when he said that, I had to put out that disclaimer. But that was my first time coming face to face with racism. And Jacqueline and I had an offline conversation where I said to her, we're dealing with a lot of generational hate. A lot of hate that we feel comes from our family. We don't even know why we hate. We were told to hate. And that's the issue that we're dealing with. So if you ask someone today, why do you hate this person? 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell you, my mama, my grandmama, my granddaddy, well, my great granddaddy was a Confederate soldier, that kind of thing. But to say from your perspective, your own personal experience, if you've never had a reason to or never encountered anyone that did anything to you and you hate them, that's generational. That does not belong to you. So we ask that question, why are we carrying around generational hate and hurt that does not belong to us? We can't speak for ourselves.
Well, Willie Lynch, he wrote a wonderful paper that had the slave masters learn a trick on how to keep us how we are for generations, and it worked. It worked.
Yeah. That thing's still working today.
It still works. So that's where it came from. We have to address that issue in order for us to move on. We can't keep shoving it under the rug and acting like it don't exist. We were taught this. So now we have to unlearn it.
Well, it's actually too with the whole concept of the brown paper bag, right?
Right.
So, the lighter you are, the light brighter that you are, the smarter you are, and the darker that you are, the dumber you are, kind of thing. So that creates a major divide, amongst the Black race as a whole. But in addition to that, due to education and things like that as well, education brainwashes because it indoctrinates, it doesn't educate.
Right.
And what we need to also understand is that from the standpoint of education, there can't be American history without having African American history in there, right? Because there was something before Christopher Columbus, right? Christopher Columbus didn't discover America, and until we're able to realize that and also educate our own to understand that we come from kings and queens, right? History will have you believe that we came from nothing, so we'll always be nothing. And that's a major issue.
Jungle.
And that's why, for me, when we talk about, we come from kings and queens, but you notice how they brush over Christopher Columbus, because they don't talk about the killings that what Christopher Columbus was all about. They just talk about he discovered America and all the other islands, things like that. They don't talk about he was a murderer, and it's so important. We have a question where someone asked about schools. I don't think schools should be responsible for teaching our history. We should not be able we need to stop relying or depending on the school system to teach our history. just like the Jewish community teaches their kids their history, we now, there's no excuse. We have the internet, we have, growing up, look, we had, I don't know how old y'all are, but I know growing up, we had the Encyclopedia Britannica. Who could raise their
Man,
hand?
I still got them. I got mine. I still have mine. Yes.
So
Yeah.
Ooh.
we had to do that.
Yes.
You know, we had to. So for me, it's so important that we stop blaming the schools, stop blaming white people. Start taking accountability. Learn your history. You know, there's no excuse. It's the internet. Stop. I think we put so much hate and accountability for white people. Well, they don't teach us this in school. They don't teach us that in school. Well, damn it, you learn it and teach your children.
Right.
Okay? So you having your children in all these games, get them to start, you know, okay, play games with them, like who discovered this. And we're not talking about, especially when we have Black History Month. If I hear one more Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, Malcolm X, and on and on, which they deserve it. But can we think
It's
about
more.
other people? There's so
Absolutely.
many people. I had a young lady mention to me, look, I'm going into my tangent, when she saw the movie, what was that movie with the the girl, the women who, what was the name of that movie?
Women
With,
Hidden
across the
Figures.
plate.
what
Hidden
was that?
Figures.
Hidden
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 Figures.
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 So she was talking to me like, girl, did you see that movie? And oh my God, I'm so shocked that Black women, you know, you guys did this. And I'm looking at her like, do you know I come from kings and queens, baby girl? Do you know? I said, no. Let me sit down and give you a history lesson. I said, we can go from Cleopatra, we can go all the way back. So when I sat down and was talking to her, she was like, wow, she didn't know about the stoplight. So there's a lot of education that I think we have to do on both sides. Miss Gail said, Kanye said Harriet Tubman never freed the slaves. Look, Tamara.
We had that conversation, didn't we?
Ask her
Let me
why.
tell you something right now, Miss Tamara. We're not gonna talk
We're
about
not
Kanye
going
right
to
now.
Kanye.
Because my blood pressure is doing
Y'all,
well.
do y'all see my tick? You see the
Yeah.
tick?
Leave him out of
That's a
this.
whole
We already had that off sideline conversation. Oh, don't make me tick.
We're not gonna talk about Kanye, but we will talk about the Kardashians in a minute. Okay.
Right.
So
But I wanted to say, Miss Jackie, too, because we also talked about if you were to poll maybe 3 or 4 people off of the street,
yes.
African Americans, right, and ask them, just any 3, even our youth, ask them about their history.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them can tell you. They can't tell you anything about their family history, their personal history. They can't even tell you what's going on in their own home. They can't tell you what color their mom likes. They can't tell you what color their brother likes. They can't tell you what kind of flowers your sister likes. Nothing. But if we ask them about Beyonce, Kanye,
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to. I text
Yeah.
Jacqueline
if
to
we
see
would
if she
ask
can
them
get it.
about any of the celebrities, they know their zodiac sign, they know their birth date, they know their mom's name, their father's name, they know the family history of every celebrity and rapper. But you can't tell me what your mother, your brother, or your sister likes to eat for breakfast. You can't tell me what color they love. You can't tell me anything about them. That speaks to our history as we let the television
And
tell
tell
our
a
family
lie
what
to our
their
vision.
vision is, instead of us teaching our children, like the Jewish community, Jamaicans, and the Haitians. They teach their children and family values. That's what we are not, but we want to be angry. If you want to be angry about something, be angry about that.
Can I say
Not
something?
knowing about your
Wait,
family.
T, before
Sorry.
you say something. No, let's not be sorry. I want Adina to share a story.
Yes,
We were
please,
talking
Adina,
about when we were living, when we all moved to the neighborhoods we moved in. Adina shared a wonderful story, and I hope she could share this about
Are we
moving.
talking about the roots?
Yeah,
Watching Roots?
when you were talking about the story,
one?
Adina, about the story about when
Turn
your
your volume
father,
up.
you turn your volume up, Adina.
Okay.
The story about when you your father, your father, I think had to your father or mother had to get the house because
Oh, that was in
tell that
Bushwick.
story. Yeah,
Oh,
tell that
wow.
When I
story.
lived in Bushwick, my mom was very, very light skinned and she had green eyes. So that's when Bushwick was like Germans and totally really, really white. So he sent her to go and get the apartment. on Halsey Street. And he would only come at night because the block was white.
Oh, wow.
And it was, I didn't realize that was a problem until when I moved to Flatbush. We did the same thing on every day. And he sent her to go look for a house. We would go to all these different neighborhoods. And then she settled on 40th Street. And he would just come at night until, like, they got used to seeing him and stuff like that. And that was really, it was really, it really defined how I grew up. Like, you keep that stuff to yourself. No one's supposed to know that stuff. And it was tough being on that block. So if I could just tell you the rest is that the show Roots came out. And I was at Pt.1 in sixth grade. We had just moved there and everything like that. And I really felt like I was in a different world, because I just came from a block where there was Spanish, there were blacks, there were German, and everybody got along. And this kid called me Kizzy all the way home. And then he punched me in my stomach. And I was in shock. And I told my dad what happened, and he went to the guy's house. And the dad was a biker. And I seriously thought that my dad was going to get killed. And he told him, he's like, your son hit my daughter. And, it was a big thing. But my brother is very fair skinned and he looks Italian, and he was very accepted on the block. I was never accepted. So it was tough to grow up like that, and it even went on when I went into the military, where you would think that everything should be a little better. I mean, I had my supervisor, a staff sergeant. He would bring me food every day. And I asked my immediate supervisor, I'm like, why does he bring me food? He goes, why don't you ask him? So I said, hey, why do you bring me food every day? And he said, because I know you people are growing up like in 1-bedroom apartments with 14 siblings. And I was like, what? And he's like, well, I know, like, you guys don't have a lot. So that's why I'm bringing you food. And he was from Alabama. And
I wouldn't have eaten that.
No, I wouldn't have either. I wouldn't have either.
And I always thought, and I was always of the mindset that, I grew up in New York. Like, we didn't have those problems, like we accepted everyone. But I mean, even in my own race, there's racism, if your hair isn't so straight, parents would go out of their way to straighten your hair, especially the boys, it was, you had pelo malo, you had bad hair, and that had to be fixed, and it's sad. It's very sad, There's even that level in our own race.
Can I say something to add to that?
Sure, go ahead.
The big problem for me is that a lot of people, they don't want to deal with the fact that we were the ones who were disciplined. Now I'm not trying to knock over this. It's all going to come in. It's all going to follow up to add on to what Ms. Torres was just speaking of. That within the Black community, that we have that the dark against the light. The racism is so thick within all of our communities that we have to stop the change. We have to stop going along just to get along. To me, loose lips save ships, tight lips sink ships. In our community, we always have a tight lip, and we let people continue on with behaviors, and just to let them be, just to not cause a disruption in the family. We have to stop that. We have to come in and say, don't you dare tell that girl that she's not pretty, or because she's light, you want to treat her better than you want to treat the other cousin or the niece or whatever. We have to stop that. If you know how you experienced it when you were growing up, you have to have more consideration to the youth that's coming up to identify it and see it and stop it, and not turn the other side because no one stood up for you. You got to be the voice in the family to cause the disruption, to bring everybody back to the reality. And we don't stand up as individuals to stop it in our own household, within our own family, then we're going to keep it going. How can the children respect us if we're talking, they hear two kinds of conversation. One conversation is about one side of the family is not happy with all of the dysfunction that's going on, where it comes down to the light over the dark. And then you got the other ones who don't want to talk about it because they don't want to cause no problems, and they want to accept people for who they are just to get along, just to get along. We have to stop that as individuals. You know what I'm saying? We could say about all the hurt from what this was or what that was, but if you're not the one to cause that interruption in the family, then you're part of the problem as well. Because somebody
Yeah.
got to stand up to stop it, to break the chain of that curse that we have in our individual households as a community of Black people. And I mean that too, as for you, my two Latino sisters, because y'all Black too. There is no
Yeah.
separation. They caused that separation and put us against each other. There was
Exactly.
no
Oh, of course.
racism
That's
thing
true.
going on. We got to
That's
address
true.
that too. They
That's
they
true.
started that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to say something, chime in. I mean, if I had seen Ladina, I would have thought that she was white because some white people are not pale. Okay, your hair and the way you speak, you know, it's. I would have thought that you was white, right? But I wanted to chime in on during this time, based on this COVID-19, excuse me, situation. It came to my mind. I know it was God giving me the insight of what we need to do. I know we was talking earlier about definitely Jacqueline when you mentioned teaching our children. That's what we used to do, and that brought life. We need to get back into not saying that it haven't been done, but overall be proud, Black and proud to teach from the home, teach our children. So, and teach them to love themselves, like you was just saying, Tahira, you know, uh, and teach them that, hey, you could go out there and do whatever you want to. See, that's what I was taught from in high school and even coming up, and saying those positive things to children, like you're saying, even though we may have come through that era and things may have been stated to us in a negative way, but we always had the gumption and the guts to know, oh, I'm not going to be defined by those words that was stated, to me. And it's pull that best out of you. And in regards to this racism, you can't pay that no attention in reference to in your own mind, because a lot of times people get caught up in just because somebody uh talking to you a certain way, you gonna bow down. I don't think so. It's all in the way you do, you know, things as well. But I just wanted to state that.
Let me read some. Thank you, Miss Sally. There's echo in the background. Okay, let me read some comments. Let me see. Medina. Okay, so Christina Fung said I could test to that. Then Ms. Sabo said it's about who holds the power, implied or otherwise, which has formed into systematic racism. The Karens of the world, the poor whites have and exhibit power and use it as depicted by our stories. What else? Let me see. Ingrid said, yes, we must teach our history, but we must share the history with others. I agree with that. I wanted to piggyback on something someone said, and I should have wrote it down. Well, I'm Jamaican, right? And in the islands, they have this thing where it's not just classism, it is racism. I'm the darkest one in my family, right? And my grandmother could pass for white, and she was high yellow, she could pass. And my grandfather was blue black. People never understood. I'm going to be honest with you, because I keep it real. I don't care. I'm the disruptor in my family. I'm the black sheep, no pun intended. I don't care. I have to say, in my family, I was never made to feel because I was dark that it was a problem. I had friends, other Jamaican friends, other Trini friends, other Haitian friends. The darker they were, like my complexion and darker, because I call myself blue black, because my grandfather, when you see his picture, all you saw was his yellow eyes and his teeth. You couldn't, at night, forget it. You wouldn't find them in the nighttime, right? So I would ask my grandmother, listening to all these women would make fun, like, they would call, he said they used to call him Darky and Blackie because he was adopted, right? So I asked my grandmother, I said, why did you marry Papa? And he's like, why you think she married me? She had a butcher, a candlestick maker, but I made the most money. And I was like, what are you talking about? You made the most money. He said, that's why she married me. And she would say something, she would say, I remember her saying this to him, your dark Ross. Whenever they would argue, she would say that to him. But I never had that, like you're Blackie, you're Darky. I never had that in my family, but I do remember other friends had that racist kind of a thing in their family, and the kids who were darker were like they got the leftovers. They weren't the pride and joy. I definitely saw that, definitely. But I have to say, within my family, because a lot of my friends would tell me, how come your family don't treat you that way? I was never made to feel that way. So for me, I'm glad because I accept people for who they are. So that's why possibly I never had the issues of having light skinned friends, where some of my dark skinned friends would like, why are you friends with her? She thinks she cute, or her hair. Then we
Yeah.
the hair. And I'm like, what difference is it? I like her as a person, because I even have my black friends tell me, oh, you like white people. What the hell does that mean? I like you because you're cool. You know what I'm saying? So does anyone want to weigh in on that?
Like my dad used to always sit there and tell me when I was younger, it's not the packaging, it's the content of the character.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents are originally from Honduras. So my maiden name is Castro.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when I was younger, it was always a question of, well, Castro, okay. And then when they would speak to me, oh, but you sound like you're white. But oh my God, you're black. No kidding, right?
Yeah.
No kidding. I'm all those things, and that's what makes me who I am.
Right.
But it's important that I say that to say is that in order to break the pattern, we have to invest in our children, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was teaching, I teach a class in professional development, success, and also business and finance in the contemporary world. And what I would incorporate in my classes would not only be the concepts of what it is that you need to learn about business, but also the history. So when I would sit there and ask my class, well, who's the richest man in the world? Of course, everyone would say Jeff Bezos, right? Because that's what they know now. But then I would pose the question, well, do you know who Mansa Musa is?
Thank you.
Okay, do you know who he is? And everyone would kind of look at me like, what are you
One of
talking
the
about?
richest,
And I
wealthiest.
and I would share with them that you have an assignment now to go and do research and learn about Mansa Musa, the king of Mali. He is still to date the richest man in the world. And it's important for them to be able to identify with someone because even I'll tell you a funny story. One day I was teaching a class and I sat in the back of the class because I kind of wanted to learn who the different the students were in my class, and who would be like the really rambunctious student versus the one that would be really quiet, and who I really had to focus on. So as the students came in, I sat there and I was sitting with a peer of mine, and I said, girl, watch, we're going to see who's who. She said, you think so? I said, yeah, watch. So of course they weren't paying attention. They walked into the class. And I asked when everyone was finally seated, I said, what class is this? And they all turned around and they said, business. So I said, oh, okay. So I continued to talk to my peer. Business what? And then some of them kind of looked at me like, what you asking those questions for? And then others, tell me the class they were in. So I said, oh, okay, thank you. So I continued to sit there and I told her, watch me. So I got up, I walked to the front of the class, and I could overhear two of the students say, yo, because I said, good day, students. My name is Ms. Sharperson, and I'm your professor for this semester. And they kind of looked at me like, what? And then two of the students sat there and said, yo, she's Black. So it's so important for students to be able to see people that look like them, because it gives them the aspirations and the hope that maybe one day I could become a teacher, or I could become whatever it is that I want to become as a result of being able to have that visual. So the first couple of classes, the class was mostly about, well, how did you become a professor? Where are you from? How long have you been teaching? What kind of education do you have? And I said, well, the class is not about this, but I was willing to open up and answer those questions for them. Because if I could reach at least one student, or the more students that I'm able to reach, to sit there and say to them that as a result of you obtaining education, that you can strive to be whatever it is that you want to be. It's investing in them. It's feeding into them. It's giving them something, food for thought, to say, you know what? I could do that too. So anything's possible.
Edward has the question, but before I go there, I have to ask a quick question, and then I'm going to go to Adina with this question that Edward has. How many people, honestly, on this live right now, even if you're tuning in, that you have a conversation with someone on the phone, they meet you, and they say, by a raise of hands, I didn't know you were Black. Isn't that crazy? And it's not even just, and it's usually sometimes too from your own people when you're talking to them and they meet with you and they're like, whoa, Miss Charles or Miss T, I didn't know you were Black. I mean, that's another form of racism, but we can get into that. For those who are not speaking, please put your phone on mute. Dina, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, but very quickly, to piggyback off of that, Jackie, you have to know when to turn it on and turn it off, right? I could sit there and take it to the street if I need to take it to the street. But if I have to be professional, I'm the most professional person that you'll ever meet. So you have to have that. You have to have that ability to adjust to your environment, whatever that environment may be. And I think that people have a tough time switching it off, switching it on, because for whatever reason. But it's something that's taught.
I was on the show last week and we call that coding. Coding is when you talk that way, you know, and not usually like when I'm on the phone, I'm like, yo, Sabrina, yo, what's up? You know, that kind of thing. Adina, yo, or Tina, yo, Adina, yo, beat down, you know, that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, I hear that all the time. And here's the funny part is they do it in my family. You sound so white. I'm like, well, what does white
what does that
sound
mean?
What does that mean? What does that mean?
You know, or if I'm on the phone and I'm talking to someone and then I get to that location, this is what I get. I was like, I know. I get it all the time. I completely understand. That's fine. Just direct me to where I need to go. I get it all the time, literally all the time.
Okay,
So,
mute your
you're
mic.
absolutely right. You have to know now. Again, when I said earlier, I was raised in Liberty City, so I can go there. So, like you said, knowing your environment, when to say, when not to say, and it's very important that our young people understand it's
Right.
okay to be you. But the only way you can get your voice heard is if you're able to articulate what you are feeling.
Exactly.
And it has to be done in a way that everyone in the room can understand you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're with your friends, you can use that language. But when you're in a room and you want your voice heard, it is very important that you know how to articulate and tell your story intelligently so that you can be heard. You have to know when to turn it on and turn it off.
That's true.
And we have to teach our children, you can't be one-sided all the time because you won't reach anyone.
But you know what? Some of you got to realize that in the very beginning, half the slaves didn't know that they were free. So you have some people who have inherited the dysfunction of not having an education to be able to express that or teach another way to their children. All they know is ghetto. You understand what I'm saying? And I mean that in the most respectable way. White people could be ghetto too. It depends on where you at. A ghetto is just a street. You know what I'm saying? The language is another thing too, that because someone says it means that, it doesn't mean that it's mean that, because we had to learn how to use slang because we didn't have our language anymore. Our language was stripped from us. So why do you think we fight so much to speak in Ebonics, as they say? Because that's our form of having another language. Everybody else have their own language but us. You understand what I'm saying? So this is another way of how they express themselves, and then they have to be told that you have to turn that off when you come around people. You understand? But it's okay for someone who speaks another language. They could turn around and talk about you in your face speaking in another language. You understand? We are always the ones who have to do the changing and the altering, but we was never given the tools to do that. Only some people, only those who really wanted to get out and want to fight to get out because they saw better and they learned better, so they tried to do better. But if you have never been exposed to another way, then you don't know. And then people look at people who have lack of education and look beneath them, but they were never taught. It's a generational curse that our people have inherited throughout the centuries. You have some people who saw the benefit in going to school, right? Then you have those who had grew up in just a whole muck of mess, meaning that there's mental illness because of the pain and suffering of poverty, because of abuse, because of all of these things that this family was not equipped with. So now they making children. So there is no one there to change their mindset. Only when they go out and meet other people, then they maybe that child may have a fighting chance because they got exposed to someone who was willing to share another way to this person.
But Adina, it took you a while to get on. So I'd like you to comment on that. And I also would like you to comment on, Edward asked, from what point of history do Black folks focus on to identify their original origin? And it's not just, when I'm saying that, it would also be for the Latin people as well. So Adina, do you want to address what T just said regarding speaking, and we were being stripped from our language, and other people can come in and say speak German or whatever the case. I'm hearing a background noise. Maybe if it's me. I don't know. But do you want to address that, Adina?
Well, with the language, yes, you are correct that it's very easy for people to go and start speaking in their native tongue. We hear it all the time. Stop speaking Spanish. We speak English. Learn English. And meanwhile, it's a language that has been around for centuries, and it's almost like a gift that you get to speak another language. I mean, it's not something that should be suppressed. Now, a lot of the kids, especially me when I was growing up, it's almost like you're embarrassed when your parents speak Spanish. So you go out of your way to just speak English and to assimilate. And it was hard for me because we lived in a predominantly white area, but yet all my family lived in El Barrio. So when we would go back there to Spanish Harlem, you saw the poverty, you walked down the streets on Madison Avenue, and I felt very displaced. I felt displaced for a long time because you would go there, everybody's speaking Spanish, but you see how poor they live. And then I would go back to Brooklyn, and it's clean, and it's I lived in a house, and it was almost like I felt guilty, that my parents strive to be better, and my father took us out of that. He didn't want my mother being in that environment that they grew up in, and I mean, with regard to speaking another language, it's always been difficult to be accepted, and I don't sound white because when I start talking, everyone comments that where are you from? And then I say New York, and they're like, oh, tough. And it's annoying. This is the way I speak. This is it. I'm not going to change, who I am to please anyone. And especially when I moved down to Florida, it was like, this is who I am. I mean, we tried at the beginning, and we almost lost ourselves again with the way that things are. And sometimes you just have to accept who you are. And this is it, And like you said, yes, everything starts in the home. We have to start making sure that these kids of ours understand that accepting and just love, that's what everything is based on. Now, I'm not sure what the person was asking about the origin of. I'm not understanding that question. The origin of.
He'll probably repeat that again, but I'll ask him to Edward, can you please rephrase your question so we can understand? Adina, and it's so funny you said that because I know, coming from Jamaica here, when I first came to America, it was almost like coconuts. I remember during the time they would say coconuts, right? And I remember I went to this school called Pt.1. That was my elementary school, Zena. And it was amazing because I remember when I was in, I think the fourth or third grade, they started busing in Black kids from Bed-Stuy, East New York. And when the kids, and I didn't know that area because where I'm from, not too far from PS193, it wasn't like that. So it was strange to me because I would see these kids coming and it was like an amazement to me. And when these kids would come off so what they did, they would have the kids busing in from those neighborhoods, right? And when they would bust them in, I met this young lady, her name was Selma, and she smelled like urine. And I'm saying that to say because she had come from a household where 4 in a bed. Remember you would hear those little things. Well, I walked 10 miles to school, 6 in a bed. Well, I finally met someone like that, and she had like 4 or 5 of her siblings sleeping in the bed with her, and her brothers would pee on her. And by the time, she couldn't take a shower because she would make it in time for the school bus. So one time, my father had this thing. He didn't want us to go in the hood, so to speak. And I snuck on the school bus and I went to her house. And you saw these guys playing Scally or Scales or whatever it was. They were playing dice. Scally, they were playing Scally. And then it was, because thinking about it now, what the hell was I doing? Because these guys were doing more than doing that, and I snuck up in her house. When you opened up her apartment, it smelled like urine. And I'm like, wow. And the bus driver was kind enough to take me back home, but I didn't understand, so I fell in love with people who lived in those neighborhoods because my father didn't want me to hang around people in the hood. Straight up, he didn't. But me being a rebel, I'm going to hang wherever I want to hang. So I just want to address that. I think, Zena, you wanted to say something. And then we'll have Miss Nadine and then Sabrina.
To piggyback off of what Tahira was saying, yes, right. I totally understand as far as the language thing, but at some point, you have to learn to play the game. And especially now with modern technology and things like that, I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily have the ability, let's say, to buy a computer, but yet your kids will have the most recent phone. And as long as you have a phone, you have the access to the World Wide Web to be able to learn whatever it is that you need to learn. Because unfortunately, children nowadays are raising themselves. And what happens, you sit them in front of television and you just have them watch. What are they really looking at, right? So the images that they see on television can either be a detriment or it can be a benefit, because once they're exposed to television, if they're watching the proper things, that's how they learn. So it's not only just, it's a great concept for people to take children under their wing. That, just like I believe that anyone that I come encounter with, because I work in higher education, I have a moral obligation to invest in anyone that sits in front of me. But in the same token also, my daughter gets embarrassed all the time because I'll talk to anybody in the street. And anybody that's willing to listen, my hopes are is that by the time they leave me, they've learned something from me, and the same way vice versa, because that's the only way that we can share and spread information.
Okay, here's Edward's question. But we cannot always, look how fancy I'm getting, because we cannot always allow that to be the excuse because of cultural challenges. Why we are not able to assimilate, many Black folks who are successful came on those plight you stated. Okay, that was Edward's question. That was his statement. Ingrid says it started with pre-colonial Africa. It demonstrates that our institutions predate those of Europe. Okay. Now, I got to ask this question because we have a lot of questions and I know we have limited time. What are your thoughts and your opinions? And I want y'all to be honest about Black Lives Matter. I'd like to start off with Miss Ali.
I was about to say Black Lives Matter because they do matter, okay? If you don't be proud of who you are, who you going to be proud of? And that's why we've been talking here this evening in reference to finding out who you are. And, I've always stated you have to love yourself regardless of how people always look at you. You have to build up within yourself. Black Lives Matter because we do matter, okay?
Ms.
And
Ali,
if you don't think you are, yes.
I didn't reference this. I didn't state this correctly. What do you think? Edward got what I meant, but I didn't say it correctly, and it's my bad. What is your opinion of the Black Lives Matter movement? That's what I needed to ask you about.
The same thing. The movement, we need to have a surge. Just like I read the article of the young lady who started it a couple of years ago. We needed to have that surge of having something to stick in our minds and make us feel worthy. The movement is the movement to get us to come back together like we used to be, like we talked about in the beginning, of this program, is that if we don't think that we matter, who will? The movement is bringing us to calm ourselves down in this storm of the COVID-19 and take a look at, sit back and redo. Like some people have stated, we've gotten another chance to work together from within our own race and take it forward like it should be. I like the movement because I grew up when the riots and stuff was going on in the '60s. So hey, that was a good thing.
Okay. Edward says it's premature to call it a movement. And I don't know if a lot of people know who started the Black Lives Matter movement, because I do call it a movement. Zena, what are your thoughts about Black Lives Matter movement?
To piggyback off of what Nadine was saying, it's important for us to understand the importance and the contributions that we've made. But I also believe that when a lot of times when people hear the Black Lives Matter, the assumption is that it's because it's affected a lot of our Black men. Black Lives Matter has affected a lot of Black women also. Also, there's a lot of transgender and LGBTQ individuals that have been affected also. So I think that it's important, as Nadine had mentioned, is that it gives us an opportunity to come together as a collective, because as long as we're all strong, we're full strong in the sense that we're more effective in presenting ourselves to the rest of the world, basically.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with T, and then I'm going to go with Sabrina, and then Adina. So Nadine, put your phone on, put your thing on mute. Zena, mute. So T, what is your regarding Black Lives Matter movement? What is your opinion?
My opinion is that that is bullshit. That is propaganda. Sorry for cursing, but that is. You understand? And at this day and age, for us to have to say Black Lives Matter is a damn shame. My thing is, we need to address what's in the books, is that we are only 3/5 of a human being. Once we address that, then we can have equality. Other than that, the marching, the protesting is in vain, because we've been there, we've done that, and we still don't get the results that we deserve. So my thing is now is, how do we fix this narrative? What are we willing to do to stand up to really take change? Because if that means protesting about them changing what's in the books, is the only way we're going to be heard. Other than that, we're going to have nothing but propaganda and other rich white people supporting these propaganda groups, and that's what it is. It's supported. Black Lives Matter is supported by a white millionaire. I can't remember the man's name, but go look it up. So that's my opinion on it. It's hogwash.
Okay. Tell us how you really feel. Okay, Sabrina, next.
Yeah, I am. What I'm seeing is what we as a people should have been doing from day one is coming together under one voice, because the narratives as we do this are changing. My problem with that, if Black Lives Matter, why do we keep taking each other's lives? That's my problem with this movement, that we have jumped on board. If we matter so much, then we should matter enough to each other to continue changing the narratives on the jobs, changing the narratives in White House, from all the capitals all over the world. We live here too, is my only statement. Why do we have to have a movement to say we live here too? That's my only problem with this. if we matter so much, our people, I just want to say, if we matter so much, stop killing each other, because we are in a time right now. This is our time to change the narrative. We are changing history, but we keep repeating it because we're hurting ourselves. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Because you know how I feel, Miss Jackie. We
I
talked
know.
about this.
Mute yourself right now. Mute, because we're about to go there. Mute it. Okay. And you know, we've lost we're losing our leaders. We just lost John Lewis. We lost Reverend Vivian. We now, they got to think about this. This man was beaten, almost killed, and I'm talking about Representative John Lewis. And to see we have not changed, we're still killing each other. They were fighting the oppressive, the white people who were civil rights. Now we have to fight our own from stop killing each other, and then we have to fight the racist people out there from killing us. So I do understand in one hand when I'm talking to white people and they're like, wait a minute, y'all talking about the police, but y'all need to stop killing each other. And I get what they're saying, but we have to start showing self-love. It all starts from self-love. Because my thing is, I don't want you to treat me the way how you treat yourself, because you may not know what love is. You may not know what the definition of love is. And if you have no love for yourself, I want you to treat me the way you treat yourself. Let me tell you how I want you to treat me. Because I always hear, the Bible says, love one another as you love. No, I want to amend that part in the Bible if I could, because so many people are coming from hurt. So many people are not healed. And then because of whether they were molested or whatever, they weren't shown love, they then treat you like a piece of crap because that's all they know. That's why it's so important when you meet people, tell them how you want to be treated. Have that conversation. Have that conscious conversation with people. And then maybe things may change. Adina, I want you to weigh in on that.